And we are live on YouTube, rock and roll. Welcome to Triple T, number 37, September 13th, 2022. Wow, made it this far, number 37. So, Elijah already let me know that his microphone is not plugged in right now. So we're going to be deciphering some texting if needed, which means I could ask, how has everybody's week been? Probably should introduce myself. For those that are watching the recording, my name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver. Got some wallpaper that says I know a few things, but Triple T is, I set this up first of the year. Wasn't sure how long it would go. We're already to number 37. And if this is your first time watching for the first hour, I go over some topics and give my point of view on it and look for any feedback that you guys want to share. Second hour is open mic, open platform. If you have any questions, no question is too silly or crazy or out of line. However, I do chase a lot of squirrels. If you've watched any of the other recordings, you know that to be true. So I guess it comes down to Miss Lenora. Do you have anything, ahas, epiphanies to share from the last week? Or
happy belated birthday!
Thank you.
Ahas and epiphanies. Lots of questions that I was just skimming through my phone, but yeah, otherwise good stuff.
So lots of questions.
Yeah. Just in like a lot of different directions. Yeah.
When would you like to start the questions?
You can talk about whatever. I'll wait till the second hour.
Okay. Well, with all that's been going on, for those of you that aren't sure or know what, I have had one heck of a couple of weeks. Flew up to Minnesota to gather what was left of my stuff scattered around all over up there, and it was quite a wait. I mean, to be honest with you, I had the very first car that I ever owned. I bought when I was 12. That was rotting in a buddy of mine's backyard for the last 15 years. What time was not kind to it, but I did get it home. Had stuff at my aunt's place in Fargo, North Dakota. Finally got all of that stuff out of there and had a 53-foot semi-trailer full of stuff rotting in another friend of mine's backyard. And had to go through the joy of picking what was coming with and what was going to be left behind for whatever fate becomes of it. And at some point you just say, well, I did the best I could. Didn't know if I was going to be gone for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. 15 years flew by in the blink of an eye, and here we are. And I found myself today thinking about some of the stuff I left behind, going, and then it dawned on me that, we have a lot of the same type of stuff in our head regardless. Things we wish we would have said, things we wish we would have done. And I have to take my own advice that I give to everybody, Sometimes you just got to let go. Got to tear that rear view mirror off and look through the windshield because you're not going back there. So the stuff I did manage to bring back, I feel blessed, but also now it's time to absorb it into the property and figure out what is going to be sold off. because we had already filled up the property. Yay. Anybody else ever go through that fun, joyous process?
I had to clean out quite a bit, but just from moving from colleges to apartments. So I don't think I've ever experienced. Yeah, no, I've never experienced what you experienced. But I do like the saying that there's a reason the rear view mirror is really small and the windshield is really big.
Correct. Yeah, when 07 hit, I went out to Cali, to San Diego, kind of on a whim. Ended up sleeping on the floor in somebody's garage, and didn't have a job to come back to Minnesota for. But the bank didn't care. They wanted their money. So landed a job and let them know that I was going to need a week off to fly back home and get my truck and my trailer. And that's what I did. And I had a week to pack an entire property into a 53-foot semi-trailer. There's Francine. And so it didn't get put away quite as nicely as I would have liked it to have been. The stuff just kind of got slammed in there. And then it was so far I was flying back and forth instead of driving, so I didn't get a chance to bring a whole lot of stuff back to Cali. So virtually all my stuff has been sitting waiting for me in Minnesota for the past 15 years. So welcome to my therapy. Thank you for showing up.
It works now.
And now we can hear the great Elijah.
I unplugged the mic because I was using it elsewhere. I've been recording some mind-altering audios.
Mind-altering audio. That sounds quite fascinating.
That's awesome.
They require repeated use. They don't just, you can't just listen to it once. You have to listen to it like over and over and over, but it definitely works.
Very cool. And I just had a squirrel. Gonna grab it quick. Was it last Triple T, we talked about manifesting? Last one or the one before? I know we had talked about manifesting.
I know I had asked questions at the one before.
Okay. Well, my mother got to witness the power of manifesting as I was getting the moving truck and trailer, and everybody's worried about how I'm going to get all the furniture, the antique furniture that I managed to get up to my aunt's place, which was in her basement. Nobody there was strong enough to help me carry the stuff out. And so, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And I was just like, it'll work. As I'm backing into my aunt's driveway, the neighbor is pulling in. And I get out of the moving van and I said, what do you charge for labor? And he's like, I said, I've got 4 pieces of furniture in the basement here, and nobody here is strong enough to help me carry it out. How much could I pay you? He's like, well, I'm getting ready to go bowling. I said, perfect. You go get ready for bowling. I'll go get all the pieces ready so that when you're ready, we can just bam them out and you can go. He's like, all right. So that's what we did. I got everything ready. He showed up, knocked him out. And it was kind of funny when we got done, I pulled out some money and offered it to him, and he was like, no, 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 can't pay me. Nope, nope, nope. I said, well, I'm not trying to pay you. I want you to buy me a beer, but I can't drink it because I'm driving. So I'd appreciate it if you drink it for me so it doesn't go stale. He's like, well, huh? I said, yeah, I want you to buy it. Would you buy me a beer and then drink it for me? He was like, oh, okay. Took the money and I went in. I told my family what I'd just done, and my aunt goes, he doesn't take money from anybody. In fact, I snuck some money in his pocket one time after he mowed our lawn for us, and he wouldn't talk to me for 2 months. I said, well, you gave it to him the wrong way. And then when it came time to go to the trailer and load up the van with the stuff that was in the trailer, I was not looking forward to it because it was going to be a lot of work. And a buddy of mine calls me out of the blue. Heard you were in town. What's going on? You need any help? I said, well, yeah, I do. All right, be on up. And he drove right up. Took him an hour to get there from where he was living. Drove up, and we went through and unloaded a whole bunch of stuff and power loaded it quick. And the next day, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get my car on the car hauler because it had been sitting outside for 15 years. And when I got there, I was the first one to get there and had to move some stuff around, and 3 flat tires, only 1 tire would take air, 3 frozen brake drums, only 1 tire would turn, even when I hooked it up to the truck and pulled it and wouldn't turn. And finally, my buddy who owned the property showed up, and he had some tools, and we got the other front tire to move. And he used to own a skid loader business. Well, they brought a skid loader, and that's how we loaded it up on the trailer.
What's a
And my
skid
mom is
loader?
just like, how do you are so lucky. I said, well, hey, you have to believe that you're lucky. The only difference between lucky and unlucky people, and it's been proven enough times to hold its merit, is lucky people can believe that they are lucky, and unlucky people believe they are unlucky. And then, another part, as long as we're having fun and chit chat and all this stuff, when I went to go pick up the moving van, we get done. The truck only had 1,930 miles on it. Brand new. Did the inspection, and we're walking. I'm about to sign it, and I said, well, where's the trailer so we can check that out? The guy goes, trailer? I don't have a trailer here. And I said, well, that's part of the bid. That's why I came here. I needed a trailer. That's why this is a 16-footer, not a small one. So we went in, sure enough, oopsie. Yeah, we forgot to send up a trailer. We'll get it there tomorrow. So next day I pick up truck and trailer. Well, today when I dropped off truck and trailer, they had a $232 charge for me for bringing it back late. And I went, no, because I ended up getting it late because of an oopsie. And the guy working there was like, we can call corporate. And I said, go ahead. So he called. I got on the phone and did some explaining, little explaining going on. Oh, no problem. You're good. No charge. And when I got done, the guy was like, I'm so sorry it took so long. I said, well, how long it took us? What, 15 minutes? He goes, yeah. I said, well, 15 minutes of waiting saved me $232. There's 4 15-minute segments in an hour. So how much money did I make in an hour? About 920
$128.
And he goes, I never thought of it that way. I said, yeah, I paid myself about 920 some dollars an hour to wait and talk to a rep. I can do that. It's worth that to me to sit around, chit chat, and wait. So it's a different way of reframing and looking at things. The other cool thing on the way down, my mom drove down with me, and so we got a lot of windshield time, which precious, worth so much. And when I put into the GPS, I put avoid tolls. And so it sent us on the old main route, which was a mainly 2-lane highway through the country. And I didn't want to run the rig over 65 miles an hour anyway for gas mileage. And so we got to see some of the coolest little dinky towns that maybe, there's 1-horse towns, then there's 1 1/4 horse towns, and then there's like half a horse town. We went through a couple half-horse towns, stopped to get some coffee and a roll in a 1 1/4 horse town, had a nice chit chat with a couple of the good old boys sitting outside of the gas station having a smoke, and go inside, and the inside of that gas station was probably twice the size of this office space, and had a table with 5 guys sitting around having their morning coffee because the restaurant wasn't open yet. So that was their gathering place in the morning. Just chat. It was cool. If you get a chance, sometimes it pays to get off of the freeway. It took us probably an extra 4 hours of driving. But even when we finally decided, we'd been on the road we'd been up for 18 hours. I was getting a little woozy and needed to get a hotel, and stopped at a hotel and found out the state fair was going on. Everything was booked, solid. And I'm like, oh, oops, it'll work out. Mom is so exhausted. And I said, it'll work out. We'll find something. And sure enough, avoiding tolls took us through another little 2-lane part through old part of town. And pulling up to a stoplight, looked over to my left. There's an old hotel. Boop, popped right in and got a room for the 2 of us for $80. Winning! And it was nothing fancy. It was super clean and right next to a gas station. Had quote unquote hot breakfast in the morning, mainly coffee and a banana. But it was good for $80. And we headed back on the road and just talked and went over trainings. My mother is getting very good now at Echo Talk and Tree Magic Questions and understanding values and criteria elicitation. And so all of that just to reinforce that take a little time to try the side roads. Oh, squirrel. Just bing. If you haven't already, reach out to the mentors in your life, especially the ones that poured into you when you were young. When I was home, I got to see Hugh Carl McCorder. He was a captain in the Navy, Seabee. Man can build anything. And he's the one that he and his father, Hugh McCorder Sr., taught me how to work with wood. One of the first jobs I got paid for, other than pick and rock, which wasn't, that was a little more mandatory, but pulling nails out of 2x4s, reclaimed 2x4s. Because Uncle Hugh said, you know what you call a 2x4 after you pull all the nails out of it? A 2x4. Because as long as it's straight, it's still good wood. And at 80 years old, he's selling probably the 9th house that he has built for himself with a huge workshop and building his retirement home. He is building his retirement home by himself at 80 years old. And I got to go into his shop and saw the power tools that I very first learned how to use. Radial arm saw, the planer, all the stuff that seemed so big when I was young. And I'm looking at it, and he still has them. He still uses them. He's had a couple of, I asked him about a couple of the tools that were in there, like a large panel saw. He has had that panel saw for almost 65 years. And he's 80. Happened to see it before he went into the Navy and bought it, kept it, still uses it. So, and I got to talk to a couple other mentors and got to see the place that I started washing dishes in a restaurant when I was 14. And if you're going to freak out about child labor, stop typing. Where I grew up, you were treated the age that you acted, not the age on your birth certificate. And thank God, because I was a young, ambitious kid that was very curious and loved to learn stuff. That's why I got to hang out in a mechanic shop when I was 11. And Elijah, that's why people still bribe me with candy. Yes. People ask me how old I am, and I'm like, depends on where I am and who I'm with. Last night, after unloading my car by hand with a come along and some straps and chains like I learned from Uncle Hugh, and a couple of fresh blisters and a few other things. This morning when I woke up, I felt a little older than my birth certificate says. Elijah said, I no longer live in time, I live in moments. Amen. And that's part of why I wanted to share this message was live while you're alive. A lot of people forget that part. And for those of you that saw my post on Facebook and are wondering when I'm going to get to the stuff that I posted on there, I suppose I could get started now that I've talked about my trip for 25 minutes. What I picked out for this session was sports protocols, worst case scenarios, and driving with mom. I guess I went in reverse order a little bit. So yes, driving with mom, windshielding time. I'm going to add to windshield time. So many people forget about windshield time, and it doesn't have to be in the vehicle or windshielding. It's more of a concept of finding ways to spend time with people. When I was in a company, a member of a company called World Ventures, I was smart enough to volunteer to pick up the trainers at the airport and volunteer my time for audio video. And what that allowed me was one-on-one time with people that most other people in the company only wished they could spend that much time with. I got the ability to ask them questions one-on-one, and get to be friends with them, even though I wasn't this amazing high-ranking position in the company. It's also right down to family and friends. Again, windshielding with my mother from Minnesota to Texas over 2 days, and just having that one-on-one time to chit chat. Any thoughts, input? Oh, Francine just commented, didn't realize it had a name, windshield time. We used to call it that quality time. Yes. But a lot of people forget about creating those opportunities. Whether it's windshield time, quality time, we let time go by so casually most of the time because we think we have plenty of it. And that's where I was really, really happy when my mother said that she would be willing to ride with me down here to visit us for a couple of weeks. I was actually going to have her as a guest tonight, but she's still a little tired from the trip. So there's some stuff off of driving with mom. Sports protocols I put on there because I've talked to a number of people who've got their kids in miscellaneous sports and things of that nature, and told them that I would talk about it on Triple T so they could watch the recording. There are a lot of different protocols out there. A lot of people in the hypnosis realm. Joni Knighty works with swimmers mainly, even worked with a number of Olympic swimmers. And shoot, now my brain just blanked. There's a couple others that I know that work with sports people. One of the protocols that I've come up with is I will have my athletes study a skeletal and muscular chart, tendons as well. And I tell them, this isn't to have you memorize all the names. It's so that your subconscious can be reminded of how complex the machine is that your mind is running. We take for granted how, if you're going to throw a ball, you just grab the ball and you just chuck it. And you don't think about how many bones, muscles, and tendons are being activated in an orchestra of events to make that ball not only fly, but fly strong and accurately. And so when I have them look at these charts of muscles and the skeleton and tendons and everything, it allows them to picture a little more clearly what they're asking their body to do and how. The second part that I have them do is now picture how smoothly can you make the action. And I'm trying to figure out where I got this story from about NASCAR. So if anybody that's watching the recording or anything or knows the origin of it, please put it in the comments so that I can track it down and reference it again. But if anybody here ever watched NASCAR, even a little bit? In NASCAR, as in a lot of the racetrack motorsports, F1 racing, things of that nature, they have pit stops for fuel and tires. Now, the pit crew, they practice and as much as any sports team out there, because any small fraction of a second that they can shave off saves time for their team, for their driver. And so they will practice and practice and practice and practice until they hit that glass ceiling where they can absolutely not do those things any faster. Well,
sorry, TJ, have you seen the F1 Red Bull team do pit stop? They changed tires. They changed 4 tires. They didn't take on fuel, but they changed 4 tires, stop and go in 1.82 seconds.
Right. That's what I'm talking about.
Insane.
And the amount of practice and exercise, the exercise regimen that they have to go through to be in that type of shape, and then the exercise to make sure that they do it with such precision and speed to be able to pull it off in that fashion, is where this one team, it was a NASCAR team, if I'm remembering the story correctly, and please correct me if you know the true story. The owner of the team of the cars and stuff heard about hypnosis and hired one of us to go and watch this. And so he watched them practice, and then he had them study a muscular skeletal tendon chart so they knew what they were doing. And then he said, now what I want you to do is I want you to picture the entire process in your mind, and in your mind do it as though it's an orchestra. When you see that car coming down pit row, the music starts and you are all going to be part of a dance. And instead of doing it with muscle and strength, I want you to do it as smoothly as possible. So the person operating the jack to jack up the car back, some of them have air now, but so how smooth can you put that under the car, jack it up? Person that's taking off the tire, the one running the air jacks, the impact wrenches to release the lug nuts. How smoothly can you move in, hit them, move out? The person taking the old tire out, how smooth can you move that old tire out? The person moving the new tire in, how smooth can you put that? And we're just going to focus on smooth. We still want you to do it fast, but the emphasis is on how smooth can you do it. So after they had practiced a little bit and thought through it, now we're going to time you, but again, the emphasis is on smooth. But before we time you, I want you to write down what you think what you think the difference in your time is going to be, and by how much. When they got timed, they had actually cut their time. And when he looked at what they had written down, every single one of them had written down that it was going to take longer, and some of them wrote down a significant amount of additional time. Slow is fast, fast is slow. Also,
it's a paradox, you get there quicker by slowing down. Like if you're going from A to B, like in a journey, you get there quicker by slowing down. Because people who rush make mistakes. They trip over themselves, and
yes.
they fumble. But when you're calm and you're kind of flowing, you just kind of you see the space as it opens up, and you just mosey on through.
That's exactly why I cut my fingers all the time with knives. Going too fast.
Mm-hmm. And what have you learned through the process?
I need to dial it down.
Dial it down. But that was the interesting part of, like I say, every one of them in the pit crew wrote down that it was going to take them longer because they were no longer focused on how fast could they muscle through it. Do it as a dance together, and the choreography just flowed. And with one of the professional baseball players I got to work with, he was getting a little old in the industry, aka he was like in his 30s, early 30s, and thought he was kind of hitting the downhill slope in his career. And so I worked with him, and same thing. I'm like, I want you to think about how smoothly can you throw the ball and change your target. I said, when you're throwing to a glove, don't make the glove the target. Move the target at least a foot behind the glove. So you're going to throw through the glove to your target a foot behind it. The next time we had a session, he was like, dude, I am throwing harder and more accurate than I have in my career. Yeah, because you're throwing smooth, following through, picturing all of the muscles, all the tendons, all the bones, all working together, and he's smoking them in there now. Yeah. So if you're working with sports people, these are some of the protocols that I've had great success with. Another one that I have them do is I have them put more pressure on themselves when practicing than when the game is on. Because typically their mind will do the opposite. They're just relaxing and playing and having fun during practice time. And when the game is on and all of that, that's when they are dealing with the pressure. The only problem is they will practice 5, 6, 10 days to each day that they're playing, or even more. Well, when your body gets so used to playing 10 days, it sometimes is not ready for the pressure for the one day. And so I have them in their mind reverse it. When they're practicing, that's when the money is on the line. When the crowd is there, that's when they get to have fun
State
and play.
dependent learning. It's they call it state dependent learning. You know, like as a parallel. Sorry, TJ, may I?
No, please.
People who study for exams. It's a prime example, right? They're tanked up on caffeine. They're up late and they're like cramming, revising, cramming, and then the day before the exam, they say, "Oh, I'm going to get a good night's sleep and be well rested." And they go into the exam well rested, but they can't remember a thing. But if they went into the exam tanked up on caffeine and tired the same way they were when they were learning the material and revising, then they would remember it easier because they'd be in the same state that they were in when they were learning it.
Yeah.
So it'd be easier to recall. So if you, I'm not suggesting. Listen, if you're a student out there, I'm not suggesting that you caffeine and don't get a good night's sleep. I'm saying you should rest well and evenly while you're revising, so that when you're well rested in the exam, it's easy to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've worked with a couple of golfers now, and I have them put the pressure on the practice putts, because when they mentally put the high pressure on the practice putts and convince themselves that when they're in front of the crowd, that's when they get to relax and have fun. That's when they're hitting the crazy shots in front of the people. Lenora?
What do you mean put pressure on them? Like,
say when in the game, when is the most pressure on? Like for a golfer, they've made it through to the 17th or 18th hole, and they're even with two other players, and there's $25,000 purse or more on the line. That's when the phenomena called the yips show up, and they start making really stupid mistakes because the pressure is on. And so what I do is have them replay those high pressure moments in their head, identify the energy, the feeling, how are they breathing when it's down to that one putt, that if they miss this putt, they lose the game. And so you put that pressure on, and they go through that during practice. That way, when it's actually the game, they've become so accustomed to it, and we do a reframe that in their head, in their mind, they're saying, well, I've done this, I've made this shot 1,000 times. This will be 1,001. Watch this. And they're able to, without all the pressure, be able to make 1,001. Instead of standing there going, oh shit, oh shit.
If it was me, I would do it the other way.
What's that?
If it was me, I would do it the other way. I would reassociate pressure with pleasure, so that they enjoy the pressure.
Yes, that's why I put the pressure on during their practice time, because there's no one around judging them, and they get used to it. They start to enjoy it. It becomes the norm to their subconscious versus becoming foreign when the pressure is on. just what I've done and gotten good results with it so far. So, but that's why I do Triple T, because I always like hearing alternate ways of doing these things, because as we know,
I also think there's more pressure when you're one stroke up. Like if everybody's on par, let's say everyone's on par and you're leading with a score of -1,
yeah,
the pressure's on you.
yep,
The pressure's not because you, like, let's say you're on the last hole and you're up by one stroke, and the others, they have nothing to lose. They have the 25,000 to win. Let's say it's $25,000 purse. They have that to win and nothing to lose. Right now, that $25,000 is coming to your pocket and it's yours to lose. So I think the pressure is on more
yes.
when you're winning than it is when you're chasing.
And if you practice with that feeling, that was how you practiced before the game constantly. When they get into that position, their body is already used to that feeling, and the pressure is not really there anymore. It's the same as when they practiced. What I've found with a lot of the ones that I started with, when I asked them what the pressure felt like when they were practicing, well, there wasn't really any pressure. They were competing with themselves, but there wasn't a whole lot on the line other than competing with themselves or with their buddies or with the ranking in the pro shop. Lenora?
So then would you make basically the pressure that they're putting themselves on, or that they're bringing up during practice, would a combination between the two of them, I know Elijah mentioned about pleasurable, would it be pleasurable and excited when the pressure is on, but then aren't you taking that away? Or is it naturally there when the game is on?
You have them replay the recording of when they were under the most pressure. What shot did you have the most pressure on in a competition? What did that feel like? What was there? And now, can you practice with that pressure until it becomes so natural that that's you, it just feels like your normal environment. I have them picture the crowds, the big paycheck that they show, that, size of a small car, and that's how they practice especially their long putts. And ironically, um, a lot of the short putts are missed by the yips. And so,
They don't practice them as much.
yes, correct.
Who practices a putt from 5 inches away?
Exactly.
Right.
And how many, if you were to YouTube.
And the crazy one is, like, that's the most embarrassing one to miss. So that's the one
right?
It's going to hurt when you miss it.
So many of them have missed those short putts when they thought they had it.
That comes to, like, lapse in concentration, So
Yep.
also then it becomes about focus as well. How long and how well can they maintain their trance, their game trance?
Yes.
Right. And do they have, like, you could even give them a way to re-trigger their game trance. So if they find themselves losing focus, they could just go back into their because really that's what it is. They're in a trance, right?
Yeah. And so these are some of the protocols that I've worked with when working with athletes of all kinds. And obviously, as Elijah's pointed out, there are many different approaches. but it's a very good niche because they're all looking for different different advantages.
The amazing thing is, like, you just have to learn to calibrate to the individual. Like, you as a coach, you know, if you're good with bespoke coaching, if you like, right? Because no two people are the same.
Yep.
So you have to change. This is something I used to talk about with a lot with Danka, right? You know Danka, right, TJ? Or maybe you don't actually. She only did the David trainings in the UK. I have this friend, Danka. We used to talk about this a lot about change the technique to fit the client,
Yes.
not the other way around, right?
Yep.
You have to alter what you're, if you know the principles behind what you're doing, why it works, rather than just
Exactly.
step 2, step 3, step 4.
And
You can edit you can edit the steps to fit whoever's in front of you, because rather than, let's turn this camera on for a sec. Rather than like, oh, we're going to conversationally work them to this place, now they're here, so now we can do regression. Or we're going to bring them over here, and now that they're over here, now we can do parts therapy. Rather than trying to work them to a place where you know, oh, now they're in this place, now my technique's going to work. You have to change the technique to fit wherever they are now.
Yes. Yep. And that is probably one of the most important things that came out of this.
Person, sorry, TJ. Every athlete, every person, not just athletes, but everyone is like individual and unique. So when you pay attention, this is why the echo talk is so powerful, the criteria, values, all that stuff, right? Because when you get to know the person that you're working with a little bit, you can figure out how they like to do things.
Yes.
And so then you set the solution up or the resource up in a way that they can re-trigger it in a way that's natural for them, right? And so they won't even feel like they're having to do anything. It will feel normal.
Yes. Which is why practice on this stuff is also imperative. And I get so many newbies that are looking for scripts. And I keep telling them, yes, scripts are great. Read them to figure out why they work, and then figure out how to do them yourself. Don't karaoke the scripts. Use them as a suggestion. And then there was light.
I know, right?
But it goes the same with protocols. Understand why the protocol works, how it works, and then be able to utilize it in different ways for different people.
That's what I see with a lot of people. A lot of coaches use like canned techniques, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Like there was this
canned.
There was this
hold
like
on.
What?
Huh?
Like what? What's a canned technique?
Canned technique is like spinning. Okay. Spinning is a canned technique, right? You know the steps, you know, oh, okay, point to where you feel it, look inside, what color is it, pull it out. Did the color change stay the same? Which way does it spin? Make it the opposite. Spin it faster and faster and faster, double, trouble, whatever, slam it back in, right? It's a canned technique. But do you know why it works? Do you know why it works?
When you understand the mechanics,
why he says the things he says, the questions he asks, like why do you ask? David will tell you, oh, when they pull it out, you ask them, does the color change or stay the same? First impression, it doesn't matter what they say. But even though it doesn't matter what they say, if it doesn't matter what they say, then why are you asking it? Do you know why he's asking it? That's what I'm saying. So if you understand what each step is, the reason behind it and why it's structured the way it is, then you can move those steps around and make up your own technique.
And here's
I had a cleaner, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
I had a cleaner whose job is to clean, the surfaces in the train station, right? They go around and they spray their little spray and they clean with the cloth and everything, right? Okay. And he had a headache. And I said to him, point to where you feel it. And he points here. I said, pull it out. He pulls it out. I said, splat it against that wall. So he splats it against the wall. I said, okay, now imagine you got your cleaner and go shh, 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 and wipe it off. And his headache went away.
Here's another way to explain canned. With recipes, if you're cooking,
ready-made.
Canned would be where you absolutely follow the recipe every single time.
Yes.
And then you find out that you've got a client who is allergic to dairy products. Well, now the canned doesn't work quite as well. But if you understand the mechanics of how the recipe is put together, you can figure out another ingredient that you can put in so that it's digestible for the client.
They did a study on this as well. They had a bunch of pianists, or not just pianists, but like classic musicians, right, play a piece in front of their peers, right? And classical music is very rigid. You can't vary the script. You know what I mean? You can't vary the music. You have to play it the way it's written. Okay. So, and these are people who have played these pieces before and have played them very well before and have practiced enough that they know that they could play it the way it's written, right? They took a bunch of these people out to one side and they asked them, as you're playing this piece in front of all these other people who also know the piece, right? We want you to change it in very subtle ways, so subtle that the people who are listening will not be able to tell that you changed it, but you'll know that it's slightly different. And so you have this pianist and he changes like one note in the whole thing. Or one note every 2.5 minutes or something like that, right? And the people who are listening actually said it was like the best version that they've heard him. Because what happens when you yourself are changing actively the thing that you're doing in such a subtle way that the other person who knows what you're doing can't tell how you've changed it, it keeps you in now because you're having to stay in now so that you can actively change it. And when you're staying in now, that means your attention is focused on the task at hand rather than relegating it to autopilot and doing what you know. Like I've done 4 magic bullets hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, right? I've done 4 magic bullets maybe more than 1,000 times even on that many different people, okay? I used it a lot. And I got to a point where I was always doing it the same way. I was always saying it the same way. And it started not being as effective because I was just going through the motions with it. So then I started changing it up a little bit. Now, when I do 4 magic bullets, even if you've seen me do 4 magic bullets before, and it appears that I'm doing it the same way as I did it last time, let's say you've seen me do it 10 times. But on the 11th time, it will seem the same as the previous 10, but I'll know that I did something slightly different. Either I changed a little phrase, or I changed the gesture, or I changed a certain something. And what that does is it keeps me in now.
Yep.
It keeps me paying attention rather than I'm just saying it, but my mind is thinking something, hurry up, let's get past the induction so we can do the fun stuff, that kind of thing, right? And in the same way, when you're in now, paying attention to your client and you know your techniques very well, your principles very well inside out, because you've done them that many times, you can edit them on the fly And it's going to seem very natural. It's going to seem very personable to the other person. It's going to show that you're paying attention. It's going to show, I don't know, it just comes out really, really good. You know, it comes out really, really good because people can tell when you are genuinely paying attention to them. And when you pay attention to someone, that's like the best gift you can give them.
Yep.
Is your attention. So thank you for giving me yours just now. Appreciate it.
And that brought us up to the top of the hour. And our beautiful Fran just joined us. Thank you so much for dropping in. Spent a little more time with my trip to Minnesota and driving with Mom. So worst case scenario is still there, but we've got, this is your guys' time. Lenora said she had a bunch of questions that yes, don't.
No, she didn't.
You already said you got them, so we know they're there. So.
No, she didn't.
So
on,
this is your guys' time.
Give us just one to get us started.
Okay, good. Let me leaf through the pages here. Okay. Question for everybody. When you have somebody who's a bit resistant and you're getting a lot of I don't knows, what wording, and I've changed it many a times, so what other wording are you guys using for people who are literally coming to you saying I want change, but they're like I don't know, and they literally are like so up here you can't get them to chill out.
Right. You don't know, do you?
I know, that's your bread and butter. It really is.
You just pace it. You pace it wherever they are. You pace it. And when you're in the same place as them, then they'll open up.
One in particular, it's big bucket of notes.
Change the way they're breathing.
They're so careful in their choice of words.
Yep.
And I know that
anybody else,
their best friend.
Huh?
How would they be if they were with their best friend?
Okay.
Would they be on guard? Have they had moments where they lost themselves in laughter and fun and joy? You pace where they are, and once you've got that rapport and you're in the same place, then you elicit the state of carefree fun. Well, it's like, because everyone's got a best friend that they just love hanging out with or spending time with, or had an experience where time flew by because they were too busy having fun and they weren't really on their guard. If you're going to elicit the state, that's all it is, I think. Because if someone is so guarded and super careful with their words, it's just protection mechanism.
Yep. One of the other things that I do is I start using the word might more. Use the word might and drill down to values and criteria and find out why it's important to them, what they're asking, what they're looking for.
Even that's very censored, very carefully worded. And I've even, broken the state, made them laugh a couple of times and said, like, I'm, however it was in the appropriate context, but they're still
Are they mismatching?
Are they what?
Mismatching?
What do you mean? Like if you're like, why do you want these changes or whatever, what's important to you about it, you can tell it's very PC.
Okay, then tell them they don't have to answer it out loud. So, okay, so you don't even have to tell me. I'm going to ask you some questions and you don't even have to answer them out loud. But I would like you to fully consider internally each question. Can you do that? Yes, I can do that. Okay, cool. So, and then you would ask them, what are some of the things that you really want? Without having to justify to anyone your reasons, or without having to, you could be because it's inside your own mind and no one can read your mind, and it's perfectly secret, and you can maintain your privacy, you can be as self-centered or as selfish or as, you know, like you can really go for what it is you really want. What is it that you really want? What is it that, you know, and even though you don't have to tell me what it is, do you know what it is? And give them a moment to consider it. Like really consider it. Because once they start thinking about what they really want, whether they've said it out loud or not, they'll be in that state of having something that they desire in mind, and then you have leverage. Because then you can just refer to that thing.
Squirrel just popped up. You could also put them in like the control room hologram deck and have them become their own therapist with you as a silent observer. And they can simply ask for some advice from you when needed.
That was like the Inception. Do you remember the Inception induction we used to do, David? You would hypnotize. We would hypnotize the client and then get them to imagine themselves in a chair and have them hypnotize themselves in the chair.
Yep.
And then, you know, so you'd go like 2 deep, 3 deep, and you'd end up like the movie Inception. Dreams within dreams within dreams, or trances within trances within trances. Kind of like that, you know, that effect you get when you have like a mirror in front and another one behind.
Yeah.
The reflections go off into infinity.
Another one that I thought was quite brilliant, Seth Breibart brought up, pretend that it's fixed and then just stop pretending.
Pretend that it's fixed and then pretend that you're not pretending.
Yeah.
Pretend that you know and then pretend you're not pretending.
Which goes right to when I teach identity management university. You know, if you can act it out, the number of clients, number of students that have said, well, I want to be like this, or I want to be like this, or I want to have more of this or more of that. And I go, okay, do me a favor. Picture what that would look like in your mind. Who do you know, alive or dead, real or fictitious, that embodies all of these changes that you want? And now I want you to step out of this room and come back in and show us what that looks like. What would that look like? And the amount of change people create when they come back. And I've told the story a couple of times that one of the students at the last time I taught it, very shy, timid, Oriental lady, because of the way she was brought up, and she wanted to be big and bold and boisterous. And I said, okay, go out. And of course, first she comes in, she goes, well, what the person would do. And I said, no, don't describe it to us. Go back out and come in and show us exactly what you're talking about. She walked back in the room. She was 3 inches taller. She was about 3, 4, 5 inches wider. Her mouth opened up and this voice came out, and her gestures were large. And she was, hi, good to meet everybody. Glad to see you. And all of us were like, and all of a sudden she realized we were all staring at her, like, and I was talking with her, but all of a sudden she goes, what? I said, you have everything inside of you that you need. All the ingredients that you need are in your pantry. Well, what? Oh, no. Don't be shrinking back into the other person. This is what you described you wanted to be. You just did it. It's all there. That voice, stop talking from right up here. Talk from your diaphragm. And I made her do that for the rest of the class. Every time that we saw her start to shrink back down into who she'd been for basically her whole life, we're like, back to the other person.
I think also that if you get somebody like that, the I don't knows, if you distract them fairly near the beginning of the session and maybe slam them into a really expanded awareness type trance that they're floating through space and they lose contact with that control person. And the other distraction to just kick them out of that I don't know phase is to get them to talk about what they're passionate about and then segue into the changes that you want. And it kind of shifts the I don't know what I don't know and gets them connecting with themselves.
Squirrel, something just popped up. What if you ask them, who is this person that's in control right now, that's afraid to talk, that's so I can't even think of the word, so precise, so whatever. Who is this person? Okay, now who can I talk to that can actually give me the real answers? Who might that be? Because if Johnny is the control freak, the controlled person that is going to sit here and hijack the change that you say that you want, who was the person that came to me and said they wanted change? I want to talk to them. And I'm sure out there somewhere somebody's going, oh, but you're going to make them have multiple personalities. We all have multiple personalities. When does it become a disorder? When one of them doesn't agree with the community that you live in. Yes, I know somebody out there is frantically typing now. But think about it. We all have multiple personalities. Yes.
Okay, so if somebody's saying they want the change and they came to you, and who is that person? At what point are you giving them the autonomy to choose and simply say, like, you know what, I can't let go of control and do this, versus pushing them, or just knowing who they are, I guess, just knowing where they are and meeting them where they are?
I've fired a couple of them. No, seriously, I've had a couple of clients.
Are you afraid to send people home?
Huh?
Which one is
TJ, you go first.
No, I heard what you said, and it's right in line with what I was saying. Go ahead, say it again, Elijah.
Are you afraid to send people home?
No, I'm trying to help, and then also give them that piece that says, you know what, it's not for me, and be done. Like, find that balance.
Like, they should have that autonomy from the beginning. Okay.
Okay.
Here's the truth, people. Anybody
They always have their autonomy.
Anybody who's listening, here's the truth. Real magic is not what people think it is. Okay. When people hear the word magic, they think about like supernatural, or something that's from fantasy or thaumaturgical acts. But real magic, the magic that can be done, they don't consider to be real magic. So the fake magic is what people think is real magic, but really that's just fantasy. And real magic, the magic that can actually be done, which is what makes it real, is not considered to be real magic by most people. And what that real magic is earnest effort on one's own part. Okay? You can come to me. I know some tricks and some shortcuts and some really, really, really cool shit that will help you make your task many, many, many times easier than it needs to be, the way you're doing it without my help. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to say some words and suddenly, boom, your life is fixed, because that's not how it works. Okay? The magic happens when you apply what we're saying, right? And you, Mr. Client, Miss Client, need to understand that. Do you know the difference between, like, when they measure hypnotizability in people? Do you know the difference between someone who's considered highly hypnotizable versus someone who's considered resistant? The difference is the highly hypnotizable person seems to understand that they have a role to play in the experience, and that role is active, and that they are to indulge in their senses and allow themselves to get lost in the story and the fantasy and then take action. And that they're, whereas the resistant person is sitting there waiting for something to happen and they're not being active. And that's the difference.
Kind of like the people that go through the haunted house going, yeah, this isn't real anyway, and I wonder how they're going to do this. Oh yeah, that chainsaw doesn't even have a blade in it. Ooh, scary. Like, dude, you paid money to go through this, not just so that your girlfriend could jump on top of you trying to save herself. Enjoy it. Have some fun with it.
Imagine going to like a Marvel movie and being like, well, men can't fly or shoot laser beams. This is rubbish. What kind of crap is this? Right? That's what movies do. That's what stories do. That's what you do with hypnosis. You temporarily suspend your own disbelief and indulge. And that's what makes it work. Because once you get caught up in it, that's what it is, right? Absorption in the experience, continually narrowing focus of attention. That's what it is. Once you got them, then you got them. And then there's not, and I don't mean like you got them. It's just my way of phrasing it. But once they buy into it, however long it takes for their own personal convincer strategy to activate, right? But once they have been convinced, I feel to talk about. Do you guys know what the classic suggestion effect is? Classic suggestion effect is the feeling that something is happening on its own. It's the feeling in hypnosis that you get that something is happening on its own and I'm not the one that's doing it. Like it must be my subconscious mind doing it. I'm not doing it. Once people have that feeling, then they really believe. Okay? Here's the amazing thing. You can suggest the classic suggestion effect. So you could say, for example, put your hands together like this, try to pull them apart and imagine that you can't do it. Imagine that you can't pull them apart, and as you try to pull them apart, imagine that they just won't come apart, and here's the key phrase, imagine that it's happening by itself. Imagine you're not the one doing it, keeping them stuck. Just by giving them the suggestion to allow it to happen automatically could get them to a point where it happens automatically. And the moment they feel that something's happening automatically, they're going to become a believer. Right?
And
imagine your eyes closing, imagine it happening by itself. Imagine yourself going deeper. Imagine there was nothing you could do to stop it. Imagine your life improving. Imagine that finger was twitching and it didn't happen. It wasn't you that was lifting the arm. right? And all you're doing is suggesting that it's happening by itself. But the moment they feel you might say, you know, something to the effect of, you might not have noticed, but your eyes have been blinking from time to time. That's right, Lenora, just like that. And you don't know that your eyes were blinking, were they? It happens by itself, doesn't it? You might notice on one of the blinks that it actually blinks a little bit longer than normal. And it might happen by itself. And whether or not you're doing it on purpose or not is not really the point. The point is, sometimes when you blink, the eyes might stay closed just a tad longer than normal. And you might not have noticed that until I pointed it out. And you see, you just start paying, like you say it, and then suddenly their attention is there. Like, am I really blinking? Are my eyes really are they really staying closed for longer? And then I'm like, the pace and the lead has already begun. Right? It's actually super easy. You can just suggest that that's what I was trying to say the other day. What I was saying, I can't remember who it was I was talking to. But I believe, and I have believed for some years now, that hypnosis is a jewel in the crown of suggestion. Suggestion is actually what it's all about. Hypnosis is a jewel in the crown of suggestion, not the other way around. You don't need hypnosis. You just need to know how to make a suggestion.
And a wonderful segue into all that is to get people to talk about themselves and start feeling passionate and connected and involved, and then segue into exactly what you're saying. And then they have no resistance. They can't.
When they talk about what they love, they get so into it that they don't know all the clues they're giving you, all the ammunition they're giving you. Yep. And if you're paying attention, if you're here now, like what I was saying earlier, if you're looking to edit your technique to fit this person in front of you, and you're paying attention, you're going to have so much ammunition to send them into the deepest, most wonderful, most profound, amazing trance that they had, and have them believe that it happened by itself without them doing it. And then they will really believe in hypnosis. Because that's what it is. It's not them, it's their unconscious mind.
Or don't even tell them that it's happening. So they don't even know that they're in trance. So, I mean, that's why they came to you in the first place. Unless they feel they need a trance for.
Well, then that's just, you just do that at the end, right? You do all the heavy lifting without them knowing. You do the change work secretly without them knowing. And then you give them a trance at the end, just as like a little bow tie to wrap around the whole thing. So, oh, you came for a trance, there's your trance. But by the time I say, close your eyes, take a deep breath, the change is already done.
Yes.
That's just the show. The hypnosis began the moment they tried to schedule the initial consult. It began.
Yep.
They don't know that. They think it begins when I say, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Yep. But it began ages ago.
How many times have you booked a session with somebody and had your change before you actually talk to them?
Yeah. I had people try and cancel on me. I don't think I need it anymore. You gotta be careful to not help them change in the consult.
Yeah, I may have cured a few too many clients in the consult just because of my.
It's okay. You just suggest people that when you come to the session, we'll make it permanent.
Yeah, good answer.
Right?
So, another question, being you've got pamphlets and booklets and Santa's list. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're the one that said you had
wait. Did you get the answer you wanted for the
questions? So,
real question.
What's the next question? Unless somebody else has a question they want to throw in. Yes, Francine.
Yes. So I was thinking, when you did talk about the golf, I have my personal golf player. We had a discussion. So I think what happens is that he, Simon, my husband, plays golf and he really enjoys it quite a lot. However, he finds that he's had a bit of an injury on his arm and he's gone a little bit backwards, and he kind of works himself up to a specific hole where he's kind of nervous about. So what I was suggesting to him is that maybe to go to the practice and then pretend he's at that particular hole and do the right to left kind of shot. And he says, oh yeah, that might be a good idea to actually practice it. No wonder I couldn't do it. So yeah, so I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and practice so that he doesn't get himself worked up too much by the time he gets there. And then also something else is that he was saying that he gets himself into trouble because he's just having one after the other one that is not great, and he kind of slowly gets down. What would you suggest for him to actually stay at the same level, that he's not, so that he doesn't get one hole after the other?
What would it be like if he only had 2 bad shots in that game? Well, I got those 2 done. Now back to our normal program.
So you would focus on the one that were better, not the bad ones.
Yeah, be like, good, got that out of the way. It's the same way that we teach salespeople, especially door to door or stuff like that, to search for the no's instead of the yeses. How many no's can you get? Because you know that inside of the approaches, your average is going to say you're going to get 20 yeses for every 100 people you approach. Well, the problem is too many people go, oh, I've got like 10 no's already. Oh, I'm off to a terrible start. But the people that have looked at it a different way go, I got 10 no's down, I got 70 to go, so that I can get to all the yeses.
Yeah, you're closer to a yes. Yeah, because if assuming probability holds true, which it does, right? Then it's just a matter of how many shots you take.
Yep.
Right. Like there are some tennis players, right, who are considered to be amazing servers of the game. They're like legendary servers, right? But if you look at the statistics, it's very rare for a tennis player to have a first serve percentage in higher than like 75%. So like 1 in 4 is going out, no matter what, right? And sometimes servers who are considered to be like master servers, really strong serving players, might go 2 whole games without getting a single first serve in. But they don't change the way they still bounce the ball the same way. They still toss it the same way. They just do it exactly the way they practiced every time, over and over and over. Because if it's only 1 in 4, then every time they miss, they're that much closer to their ace. Do you know what I mean? Because the probability it holds up. The thing is, it's like if I give you a coin that is weighted towards heads, 60%. It has a 60% chance to land on heads when you flip it, and only a 40% chance to land on tails. And I give you a 50-50 even money bet. You can bet heads or tails, win $1 to lose $1. you would be silly to not bet on heads, right? Right? But you would be even sillier to put a large sum of money on the first flip. Because 40%, even though it's less than 60, is still significant. And I could flip the coin 6, 7, 8 times in a row. And even though it's 60-40 heads, it might land on tails 3, 4, 5 times in a row. The only way to make the 60-40 show in your favor is to flip the coin 200,000 times. It has to be a large sample of results to make the probability show in your favor, right? Otherwise you just have variance. So you can, this is why casinos don't care when you win at blackjack, because they know the rules of the game give the casino a 4% edge. That is a 52% chance to win versus a 48% chance to lose. They have a 4% edge over the player, which means no matter how many times people put their chips forward, no matter how many times people get 21 and they get paid out, and the casino will pay you quickly because they want you to play again.
Yep.
Because the more hands you play, the more likely they are to get their 4% is showing in their favor by the end of the year.
Yep.
So it's about the sample size. How many results are you looking at when you're making your analysis? When you look at it and you say, ask yourself, is it working? Is it not working? How many results are you looking at? Are you looking at 10? Are you looking at 10,000? You're looking at 10 million, right? Probabilities don't lie in large samples.
And ironically, this is going to tie right into one of the deals I already put in for the talk today anyway. Worst case scenario. Well, in the quantum of possibility, that allows for best case scenario also. And it takes the same amount of energy to focus on both. So if you shank a shot, when you get up to the next shot, you can go, well, worst case scenario is it'll happen again. Best case scenario is that was the last one I did. But where your energy goes.
That's right. So at the end of the day, all you do is ruin your own mood or enhance your own mood. That's your choice.
So, next question. Let's see what else we got here. For those of you that are lost in thought of all the things going on, who's up next? Bueller?
Act like I don't have 10 more up my sleeve. Time manipulation. What are your thoughts?
What about it?
How do you make it work for you?
Francine's really good at time manipulation.
When we did the timeline with David during the course, and then TJ, you kind of fixed mine that day. I found that if I put myself and I pretend that I'm right at my timeline, I can actually stretch it. Like take my both hands and do like this so that I have more time, that I can do things, take more time to do the things I like. And I have so much more time as well. And then when I want the time to fly, I kind of squeeze it. So it just goes much faster. So I kind of, like an elastic, I bring it back together. I'm not sure how I've been able to do that. I think I don't know, it's just maybe I kind of grasp how it works. And I just constantly play with it. I sometimes stand, when things get too personal, I kind of step a little bit away from it, so that things don't hit me once after the other. And then when I feel better, I go back in it. So, and then sometimes I have it go through me, sometimes right in front of me, sometimes up and down. I kind of like to play with it. It's so that the more you experiment with it, the more you kind of grasp how it works.
Yes.
I found that, yeah, it's amazing. It's I love it. I do it all the time. And then sometimes when I leave it for a while, it just gets a bit wonky. So I need to put it back into normal. I suppose it's because it's been wonky for so long. I occasionally have a tendency, it just automatically slowly goes back. So I'm just quite careful now how it is and adjust it to make sure that it's how I want it. The way it feels comfortable. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would love to know how to stretch the time and put lots of fun into that stretched time so that, you know, even jobs that you don't particularly like doing can be a lot of fun. Who's got the ideas on how to do that?
I feel like you just did it.
Well, I think I went over my timeline protocol in one of the other Triple T, but in essence, I came up with a protocol that I call timeline with energy injection. And that's where you take your timeline and you go down to just before conception. Now timeline is in front of you, stretching forward like a long tunnel. And then you identify the colors of all the energies of the basic energies, joy, playfulness, victorious, curiosity, relentlessness, and then I added safety and love. You identify the colors of all of those basics and you inject them down your timeline from conception all the way through to end of days. Then I have the client rise up, go back to current time, land down beside their timeline so that they can see it passing like a slow moving freight train every second, every minute, every hour, and reach in and start playing with all those energies that they injected into their timeline. And instead of one at a time, you can reach in and grab onto playfulness. And if you were to close your eyes right now, Fran, imagine your timeline right directly in front of you, slowly passing by, and just reach in and grab playfulness energy. And notice what that feels like. And now reach in and grab relentless. And notice what that feels like. And then reach in and grab curiosity and feel that. Reach in and grab victorious. There you go. Now reach in and grab safety and feel that one. And then reach in and grab love and feel that one. And now that you've identified all of them, start grabbing a couple of them at a time. Like grab relentless curiosity. Notice what that feels like. Grab victorious love. Bless you. Grab relentless safety. And you can start playing so many combinations. And when you look down your timeline and realize that these energies, every single one of them is in mass abundance for the rest of your life, all the way through to end of days. Anytime you need a boost, for whatever reason, for whatever time, whatever occasion, you can simply reach in and create your own recipe for energy needed at a time. So for right now, for Triple T, have a little fun, grab the ones that you want. When you're ready, come back out, notice how good you feel.
Yeah, that was really cool and interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
She liked the relentless safety.
I
Yes.
did.
Yeah, did you see?
That was very cool. Thank you.
That's why I tell people you don't have to only use one at a time.
And now I can have a braided timeline as well. So I can have all these items totally intertwined.
Yes. So that was timeline with energy injection. What's next? What else we got?
What I also do is that I send myself some juice down the timeline. When I know that something is going to be coming that's going to be hard on me,
Yep.
I like just before it becomes hard, I send myself some juice and vitamins and love and so like concentrated, so that it helps me to actually go through. Like if I have to have a difficult conversation with someone or be exhausted or anything like that, and it makes such a big difference.
Yes. What a concept.
I leave a trail. So like I imagine the thing that I want, and imagine what it's like if I already have it, and the kind of things that I would do after I already have the thing that I want. And I get into that state, and I feel the energy and the color of that state. And then I jump ahead on my timeline and I take little nuggets of that color energy, and I make a trail from the future back to now, so that I have a map to follow how to get there.
That's very cool. Yeah, like that.
So what else we got? This is your time, so let's have some fun. The Nora Fall hide on us now?
That's got me so busy processing, I can't think of anything else. I do love timeline manipulation and planting the resources that you need, even, as a variation on what TJ was saying, getting the resources back in a time just before you needed them in the past can change how the memory's coded. If something difficult happened and, you think about, how could I have managed that if I'd known this, if I'd been able to be that, and actually implant those back on your timeline just before you went through the situation where you needed those qualities, and then replay the episode in your mind with those qualities and go through it again. And it totally changes how you feel about the memory. That also is really powerful.
One of
And
the
I
things
like
that
playing with that one.
One of the things I've also done with clients, especially when they have memories and stuff that are bothering them is I will have them again have their timeline in front of them, and I'll say, look down your timeline. You see the mountains and the valleys down there, where the mountains were the awesome, great times that you had, your favorite memories, all the above, and the valleys were the less than positive times that you went through and survived. And everything back there is what made you who you are today. But I'm curious, what kind of energy, what colors of energy could you send down your timeline to fill those valleys in, to make them a lot friendlier when you look back at them? And ironically, the two most common colors are green and blue. And my only thought process on that is, because I described them as valleys, they're filling them with water and vegetation. And so I have them send those colors down to fill in all of those valleys. And I say, now when those energies make it all the way down to conception and bounce back, allow that processing to happen quickly, and notice how different your past feels now. All of those things that you survived seem much easier. And I've had a number of clients come out of trance just like, I feel like I'm 1,000 pounds lighter. And I said, well, you are, because you stopped carrying all the weight that you thought you had inside those valleys.
And I think if you then give them the opportunity to imagine what their life would have been like if they could actually change the bad things that happened to them, very often they don't necessarily want to change those bad things, because those bad things, in inverted commas, have given them the strength to be who they are today.
Yep.
And if you gave them the choice and they knew the outcome, they'd think that it was probably worth it, especially when you give them that perspective.
And especially if you tell them that they will never lose the lessons that they learned from what they went through, but they don't have to remember them as being nearly as tragic as they've labeled it. I had a client recently who had been raped twice. And so I asked her, when you were raped, how many times did it happen both times? She said, once. I said, okay. So you were raped once on 2 occasions, and you survived both of them. Have you enjoyed sex since? She gets this big grin on her face. She's like, well, yeah. I said, so you had 2 bouts of shitty sex with total jerks who treated you absolutely in all the worst ways, and you survived it. When you think of it that way, what's changed for you? And she goes, all that energy is leaving. I said, yeah, it wasn't your fault, and you survived it. And the lessons are still there, and you learn to enjoy sex anyways. And how much more do you enjoy sex now that you realize that you've had some of the worst sex ever? she giggled a little bit. She goes, you're right. I do like sex. I went, good. And it probably allowed you to focus even more on how good sex is, right? Yeah. I said, so, not that it was ever right, and rape will never be right, but take the lessons, allow both of those versions of you to accept that you survived, you've made it all the way to 2022. And now you realize how good sex is. Totally changed it. And on the following session, apparently sex got even better because that old energy wasn't there anymore. So part of it is understanding that you can allow your client to realize whatever happened once. No matter how many times it happened, each occasion it only happened one time. And you survived each one of the occasions. And you learned a lesson from each occasion. And sometimes the lesson allows you to see how much better things are than people who have never been through what you've been through. Some of the people that enjoy food the most are the ones who have had to go hungry. The ones who have grown up in a restaurant, or not even a restaurant because maybe they were trained to understand food better, but maybe the ones who always had food available to them don't appreciate it nearly as much as those who have had to pull food out of dumpsters.
And have you
Huh?
And have you ever noticed that if you're on, well, maybe you've never had to do this, TJ, but whenever you are on a restricted diet of, or an intermittent fast diet, when you finish the fast or during the fast, if you're having some food, it just tastes amazing. Somehow the flavors multiply amazingly just because it's not happening all the time.
Yes. And one of the things that I've done with numerous people is I will tell them, I want you to close your eyes and take a bite of the food, and I want you to describe how was the food made and what ingredients are in it. And even the simplest food, when I ask them, how was it made and what ingredients are in it, their mouth completely comes alive and they will taste food in ways that they never imagined.
It even works for an apple, if you think about how it's made.
Yep. Well, an apple, I would ask them, when you take a bite of the apple, when did this tree get the best watering? Was it early in the season? Did it get good water all the way through? Or did it get a deluge of water right towards the end? Now they're analyzing, trying to figure out what the texture is, how much juice is in the apple. And they're tasting it in ways that they never, ever thought of before. It's also a protocol that I use for picky eaters, especially young children who are picky eaters. Many times I'll be like, take a bite, and I want you don't have to swallow. You can spit it out if it's terrible. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell me what ingredients are in it. How many ingredients can you identify? All of a sudden, their mouth goes into full analysis. A, it's a game for them, but B, they realize, this actually tastes kind of good. And one of my biggest successes was a dear friend of mine invited me over for supper, and their son decided he didn't want to eat lasagna. So I pulled it on him, and he's like, "Well, you're just trying to trick me into eating." No, I don't care. In fact, I would appreciate it if you don't eat, because the more you leave, the more I get to eat. And it's really good. But I just want to see if you're smart enough to tell me what ingredients are in there. And I bet you've had every ingredient that's in there. I want to see if you can tell me what they are. By the time I was done, he had 3 servings. So, and with that, that brings us to 4 minis left in this Triple T. Any closing thoughts, ideas, questions, clarifications that you guys would like to bring forth?
Give us a few more minutes about timeline manipulation, your style.
Okay. And what would you like?
All the ways that you can think of, or different ways that you can think of playing with time, reorganizing time,
okay.
having fun with time.
One of the things I like to do is you've already seen where I have them have time passing by them in front as though they're standing in a ditch by a railroad train. Next is I have them rise up, float down, and float right into the train so it's passing through them. And now they can look forward and they can see the cars, but they can't really tell time as well. These are the people that kind of show up late when the time is running through them, versus when they're standing next to it and they can look down, they can see the car way down there, and they can keep track of time. When they're into the time and it's passing through them, they experience more, but they lose track of time easily.
That's what happens when you're totally absorbed in something.
Yes. Best way to watch a movie is to take timeline and pass it straight through you. Now, when people are having a, we're just going to call it a feces day, what I have them do is I take their timeline, put it in front of them, but I have them reach out to both ends of their timeline and condense it down to the width of their shoulders. And I say, now, find this exact moment in time on your timeline. Now that you see where it is, how big is that thing that ruined your day? Makes it pretty insignificant, doesn't it? And if you got kids, look at your timeline. Look where your kids were born, and look at where your kids are going to be leaving the house and how much time you have left. That puts it into perspective as well.
That's particularly good for mothers with little children who haven't had enough sleep. If they can get that perspective, it makes it much easier.
Yep. And the other thing I love, I got to figure out where I got this quote from, was, you had a bad day? You had a bad day. How long did the event that ruined your day last? Oh, 10 minutes? You didn't have a bad day. You had a bad 10 minutes and you milked it for the rest of the day. So when you shrink your timeline down to the width of your shoulders and look at it, it puts it even more in perspective. Then the other thing I'll do is I'll have them condense their timeline down so small that they can put it right into the middle of their heart. and feel what it's like with their eyes closed to have their entire timeline from conception to end of days inside of their heart. Best way to hang out with loved ones. Best way to watch a sunset. Best way to experience northern lights. Even though having timeline pass through you is a great way to enjoy sunset because you get to experience it all. But when that's happening actively inside of your heart, So now that we're at the top of the second hour and it's time for me to say goodbye, I would like for all of you to just take your timeline and shrink it down, set it deep inside your heart. Enjoy the rest of your day or night, the rest of your week. As I thank you for once again showing up and giving me purpose for doing this thing that I call Triple T. Thank you for the questions, the feedback, the knowledge, and mostly thank you for your time, because I can't give it back to you. I can't give you more. I can only hope to enhance it in a way that makes your giving it your attention, your time to me worth it. So if you are watching the recording, please hit subscribe, ring the bell, share this with as many people as you want. Invite them to come and join us on a couple of these live. And have an awesome, awesome life. Live it while you're alive. Now go out and be nice to people. Love y'all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Well, oh, Linda. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. Happy belated birthday to you.
Whee!
When you stop the recording, I got something to tell you. Let me know.
Yep.